India is by far the largest country in South Asia. It has the maximum population. In fact, at this moment of time, India has the highest population in the world. It is also an economic and military giant. And since 1947, after the British exited the South Asian subcontinent, India aspired to become the hegemonic power in the region. And it was a stated objective of India that there will be a hegemonic subsystem in South Asia, and India will be on top of that subsystem. Pakistan, historically, they challenged that Indian hegemonical aspiration. But the problem is with the other smaller nations in South Asia, that India has got maritime and land border with every country in South Asia except Afghanistan. So India tried to influence the internal politics of those South Asian countries. And since 1947, India actually, they used their military power, military might, against most of the neighboring small states. It had a war against Pakistan, multiple war against Pakistan. It had military intervention in Maldives. It had military intervention in Sri Lanka. It did similar thing in Nepal, and Bhutan was under its hegemonic control. And among the 8 countries in the South Asian region, including India, India has succeeded to establish hegemonic control over Bangladesh and Bhutan. With Bhutan, it has got a formal hegemonic relationship through a treaty which was signed in 1949. And till now, Bhutan has got no independent foreign policy. Bhutan has to depend on Delhi for all its international relationship. It is very interesting to note that Bhutan has no formal bilateral relationship with any of the five permanent members of the Security Council, because India doesn't allow it. It doesn't have bilateral diplomatic relationship with USA, with UK, with France, with Russia, and with China. So it is a formal hegemonic relationship, and Bhutan so far has accepted it, the hegemonic control from Delhi. In the case of Bangladesh, it is slightly different, because Bangladesh was part of Pakistan until 1971. And during the Liberation War of 1971, it was India which has assisted in the Liberation War by direct military intervention, and it bifurcated Pakistan, which was India's aim from 1947, because it wanted to neutralize the military power of Pakistan, because Pakistan is the second largest country in the South Asia, and it is also an atomic power. So after 1971, after Bangladesh became independent, it was India's dream to establish hegemonic control over Bangladesh also. India tried to do the same thing with Sri Lanka, Maldives, but it failed. It failed in Maldives is a tiny country, so it failed in Maldives. It failed in Sri Lanka. It failed in even Nepal, because they are much more independent-minded, probably. But in the case of Bangladesh, they tried it for a long time, and finally they succeeded in 2009 by installing a puppet government in Dhaka. And since 2009, for the last 15 years, they are controlling everything of Bangladesh. So at this moment of time, we can say that Bangladesh is no more a classical independent state, because it doesn't have independent foreign policy. I give you one example of that. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, she visited China about 10 days back. Prior to the visit, the state visit of China by Sheikh Hasina, the foreign minister of Bangladesh, Mr. Hassan Mahmud, he publicly said that we have taken prior permission from Delhi to visit China. This is unthinkable. I mean, how can a foreign minister can say that for a foreign trip, they need a permission from a foreign country? If it was any other country, any other democratic country, then that government would have fallen within 24 hours. But nothing has happened in Bangladesh because Bangladesh is under the clutch of Delhi and under the clutch of the puppet government of Delhi for the last nearly 16 years. And Sheikh Hasina, she has succeeded to arrange 3 consecutive farcical elections from 2014. Bangladesh is no more a democratic country, and I think it is a semi-independent country now. It is sort of undeclared colony of India. As I said, in the case of Bhutan, it is already under a formal treaty. In the case of Bangladesh, there is no formal treaty, but it is an undeclared relationship is there. In 2014 in Bangladesh, there was a farcical one-party election when no other political party participated in that election. And then in 2018, it was very interesting. There was the ballot box stuffing one night prior to the election with the help of the police, with the help of the ruling party cadres, and in connivance with the election commission. And this year also, on 7 January 2024, Bangladesh had another single party election boycotted by all political parties. And they claim, the government of Bangladesh, they claim that they are a democratic country and they are democratically elected, which is absolutely a farce. But how then she is surviving? She is surviving because of the total support of India. And you have to understand the geopolitics a little bit here. United States of America and other Western powers, they believe that India is a very important ally for them to counter the threat of China and also to counter the threat of so-called Islamic forces. So they feel that India is their natural ally, their strategic ally. And this relationship actually started after 9/11, after the attack on the Twin Tower. This relationship really became more closer because historically, during the Cold War, India was part of the Soviet bloc. India was supporting the Soviet bloc. So it was against the American interest. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Americans thought that they need India to counter China's threat and to counter Islamic threat, so-called Islamic threat. So they befriended India. And India took full advantage of that situation. So in return, India demanded from the Western world, at that time, you remember, it was a sort of unipolar world immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it was America's wish everywhere. Still, America is very powerful, but at that time, it was totally unipolar world. So the Indians wanted from America that they will be allowed to work as a police, on behalf of the American interest in South Asia, and especially in the case of Bangladesh, because India think that it was them who really bifurcated Pakistan. So historically, they have a right to intervene in Bangladesh's internal politics and to control Bangladesh foreign policy. So that is the mindset of the Indian political establishment and even the deep state. So they especially wanted they will control Bangladesh. So they got a tacit approval from the American administration and the Western world that okay, let India be the policeman of South Asia, at least for Bangladesh. And as a result of that, what is happening, that Sheikh Hasina survived even after 3 consecutive farcical elections. India is using all its diplomatic power and the soft power to convince the Western world that they continue to support the present regime in Bangladesh. So that is the problem. The people of Bangladesh, they have no democratic right, and they are under severe persecution. There is no existence of any human rights, any democratic rights. There is no freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. Nothing is there. But the Sheikh Hasina and its autocratic government, they can do it because Americans and the Western world, they look into the other way in the case of to keep India happy. So it is now for the people of Bangladesh, if they want freedom, if they want their democratic rights back, their right of franchise back, then they have to fight in the two fronts. They have to fight against the autocratic government, and also they have to fight against the Indian hegemony. So unless they become successful in expelling the Indian hegemony from Bangladesh, they will not get their freedom back. It is not possible. So it is quite a difficult situation for the people of Bangladesh because it is only them probably who can fight against the present regime. And because of this, about 16 years, the autocratic lady is in power now. Because of that, what has happened? Bangladesh has become the most corrupt country in the world because all the money and all the state coffers and money is now controlled by the present government and its coterie. I mean, it's very interesting. The Prime Minister herself, she has said in a public, in a press conference, that her personal assistant has amassed nearly $40 million. Her personal assistant. And she was proudly telling that my personal assistant, she has amassed a wealth of $40 million. And nothing has happened, to Bangladesh. Think about any other country. If any president or any prime minister, he or she says that her or his personal assistant has really managed to earn about $40 million, then that government will fall within a day or two. But nothing has happened to this government, and nothing has happened to Sheikh Hasina. And we can well imagine that if a personal assistant of a prime minister can make so much money from the national coffer, then how much money the ministers and the big, the coterie and the oligarchs and the prime minister's family, they have made. So Bangladesh is basically, heading towards, it has lost already its independence. It has lost, the people has lost their all right. And probably this country is moving towards bankruptcy. So we have to wait to see what happens to Bangladesh. And we have to wait to see what happens to the Indian hegemony in Bangladesh. Only one silver line is there. Think about the Maldives. India had a hegemonic control over Maldives also, but for a very short period. And Maldives has a population of only 500,000. And now what has happened? The present government of Maldives, they won in the last election with only one slogan. That is, Out India slogan. Out India, with one slogan, they have really won in that election. And now India has lost its hegemonic control. So Bangladesh has a population of 180 million. Now, 180 million people, if Maldives can do it against the Indian giant, Indian elephant, with a population of only 500,000, 500,000, then a country of 180 million people cannot remain, a slave of a neighboring country, however powerful that country may be. So I think this is not sustainable. At the end of the day, Indian hegemony will also be defeated in Bangladesh, the way it has been defeated in Maldives, the way it has been defeated in Sri Lanka and Nepal. So that's my, in short, That's my view of South Asia for the present moment. Thank you very much.